U.S. city of Minneapolis is burning. The city has been rocked by violent protests after the death of an unarmed black man at the hands of a police officer. Protesters have torched a police precinct as rallies, which were initially peaceful, have given way to a third night of arson, looting and vandalism. A 46-year-old black man, George Floyd, was killed by Minneapolis police on Monday.
I know you didn't listen.
Now, this video taken by an onlooker shows the fatal encounter where George Floyd was seen lying face down and handcuffed, groaning and pleading for help and repeatedly saying, "Please, I cannot breathe," before he became motionless.
You guys are on another.
Oh my God, bro.
Okay.
They just dragging him.
Now, this incident has sparked widespread protests in the city. Stores were looted and burned overnight in Minneapolis as protests turned violent. The latest round of unrest in Minnesota's largest city went largely unchecked, despite Governor Tim Walz ordering the National Guard activated to help restore order. Authorities in Minneapolis and its sister city, St. Paul, got reinforcements from the National Guard on Thursday as they readied for fresh protests and violence. On Thursday, shots were fired in downtown Denver during the protests. There were no immediate reports of any injuries. Police officials said shooting happened in a park across the street from the Capitol. US President Donald Trump has tweeted on the unfolding events saying, "I cannot stand back and watch this happen to a great American city, Minneapolis. A total lack of leadership. Either the very weak radical left mayor, Jacob Frey, get his act together and bring the city under control, or I will send in the National Guard and get the job done right." The U.S. Department of Justice has said that the investigation into the death is robust and meticulous.
To be clear, the Department of Justice has made the investigation in this case a top priority. We have assigned highest of the high in my office to investigate and look at the case. FBI likewise has assigned their experienced law enforcement officers to conduct the investigation. And to be clear, President Trump, as well as Attorney General William Barr, are directly and actively monitoring the investigation in this case. I have had direct communications with Attorney General Barr and his staff, and will continue to do so. The federal investigation in this case will determine whether the actions the former Minneapolis police officers took violated any federal criminal laws, to include any civil rights violations.
Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey on Thursday called for more understanding of the built-up anger and sadness experienced by African Americans following another day of protests and reports of looting and vandalism. In the latest, a police precinct in the city has been torched by the protesters. He also said African Americans are dealing with not just 5 minutes of horror, but 400 years.
Over the last 2 days and the emotion-ridden conflict over last night is the result of so much built-up anger and sadness. Anger and sadness that has been ingrained in our black community, not just because of 5 minutes of horror, but 400 years.
The United Nations rights chief has condemned the death of that man in police custody. His name was George Floyd. UN has demanded that US authorities take serious action to stop the killings of unarmed African Americans. UN High Commissioner for Human Rights Michelle Bachelet said in a statement, I quote, "This is the latest in the long line of killings of unarmed African Americans by US police officers and members of the public. US authorities must take serious action to stop such killings and to ensure justice is done when they do occur." Unquote.